The day I found out I had cancer, the world didn't stop spinning. It kept turning, as though my life hadn't just been pulled out from under me like a cheap rug. It was a Tuesday morning. I remember because I was running late to work and nearly skipped my appointment. I'd been feeling off for a while, bloated, fatigued, losing weight despite barely eating. I chalked it up to stress or maybe early menopause. But something in me, some whisper of self-preservation, told me not to cancel the checkup. I sat in the cold exam room, clutching my purse like a life vest, when Dr. Miles walked in with a face that told me everything before he said a word. "I'm afraid it's ovarian cancer, Alex. Stage 3. My ears rang. My heart slowed. I blinked, unable to speak, feeling like I'd slipped underwater. His mouth kept moving, listing treatments, referrals, survival rates, but I only caught fragments: aggressive, chemotherapy, possible surgery, not too late, tough road ahead. I drove home in a daze, my fingers clenching the steering wheel, the roads blurry through hot tears. I was 34. I hadn't even had kids yet. I wasn't supposed to be thinking about mortality. I was supposed to be thinking about vacations, promotions, maybe starting a family. When I walked into the apartment, Ben was watching TV with his feet on the coffee table and a beer in his hand. He barely looked up. "Hey, babe," he mumbled. "Dinner?" "I have cancer." His hand froze mid-air. "What?" "Ovarian. Stage 3, I said, my voice hollow. "I need chemo. Probably surgery too. I'm going to be very sick." He stared at me, blinking, silent. The silence lasted too long. Finally, he stood up, slowly, and walked to the kitchen. I thought maybe he needed to process. Maybe he was going to get a drink of water, maybe something. Instead, he came back with his keys. "I'm sorry, Alex. I don't think I can do this." "What?" My voice cracked. I can't," he said, shaking his head like I had asked him to climb Everest. "You'll need someone strong, someone who can handle that kind of thing. I can't watch all this suffering. I want to enjoy my life." And just like that, he left. Next day I received divorce papers which I reluctantly signed without any conditions. A week later, when I went to check our bank account to pay for my first round of treatment, I discovered he'd already drained it. Everything. Our savings, my emergency fund, the money my mother left me. He left me with cancer, and nothing else. I didn't have time to mourn Ben's betrayal. My body was already falling apart. Chemo began 2 weeks later. The nausea was relentless. My skin turned gray. My hair fell out in clumps. I remember standing in front of the mirror with scissors one night, hacking it all off because I couldn't bear to watch it die strand by strand. Every part of me hurt physically, emotionally, spiritually. I moved out of our apartment, unable to afford rent on my own. I found a dingy studio in a sketchy neighborhood, the kind of place with water-stained ceilings and paper-thin walls. It didn't matter. I just needed a bed and a door that locked. I sold my car next. Then most of my jewelry. I pawned off my laptop for half its worth. I applied for every assistance program I could find, sat on hold for hours trying to talk to caseworkers who were just as tired as I was. I stood in food bank lines with people who looked just as broken. I became invisible in the eyes of a world that only sees the healthy. Ben never called. Never messaged. Never checked in. My parents had passed years ago, and my friends, well, you find out who your real friends are when your world falls apart. Most of them disappeared, not out of cruelty, but discomfort. They didn't know what to say, so they said nothing. There were nights I wanted to give up. Truly. Nights when I lay on that creaky mattress, clutching my stomach in agony, whispering to God to just take me in my sleep. To make it end. But I didn't die. Instead, something inside me hardened. A voice I hadn't heard in months, maybe years, rose up and whispered, "No one's coming to save you. So save yourself." I began keeping a journal. Writing gave me control, even if it was just over words. I'd write about the pain, about the silence, about the anger. I'd write about Ben. About the feeling of being discarded like trash. But I also wrote about hope, tiny embers that somehow still flickered. I wrote about the future I might still have, even if it was different than I had imagined. And slowly, very slowly, my body responded to treatment. By month 7, my scans showed improvement. By month 10, the tumors had shrunk significantly. And a year later, almost to the day, I was told I was in remission. I walked out of that clinic alone, hair still thin, body still weak, but with a fire in my heart that I hadn't felt in a long time. I had survived. Without him. The lottery ticket was a joke. A $2 scratcher that Carol, one of the nurses who helped during chemo, slipped into my bag after my final appointment. "Don't look at me like that," she grinned. "Call it a remission gift. Maybe the universe owes you something." I didn't scratch it for days. I found it again on a rainy Tuesday night while cleaning my tiny kitchen. I sat down with a cup of stale tea and scratched it with a spoon, thinking nothing of it. But then the first number matched. Then the second. Then all 5. I dropped the card. Picked it up. Dropped it again. My hands shook as I reread it over and over, sure I was hallucinating. I checked the website twice. Then I called the number. A week later, after verification, I was standing in a secure office holding paperwork that told me, beyond all doubt, I had just won $10 million. $10 million. I felt dizzy. Not from greed, but from the sheer absurdity of it. Just months ago, I was sleeping in a moldy room, begging for another month of electricity. Now I could buy a house. A car. Start over. Help people. So I did. I moved states. Changed my last name. Created a trust and worked with a lawyer to keep my identity quiet. I bought a small lakeside cottage, nothing extravagant, but beautiful, peaceful. Mine. I started a non-profit for cancer patients, especially those abandoned like me. I used my voice anonymously, writing blogs, sharing resources, funding emergency housing and medical bill support. I never used my photo. I didn't want recognition. I didn't want revenge. I wanted healing. And I had it, for a while. I felt peace for the first time in years. But peace, as I would learn, is often a temporary luxury. People talk about starting over like it's easy. Like you get a clean slate and suddenly your trauma evaporates. But even with $10 million and a lakeside view, I still woke up from nightmares. I still felt that phantom grip of fear every time I coughed or felt a cramp, thinking, is it back? But now, I had space to heal. I got a dog. A rescue mutt with crooked ears and soulful eyes I named Toby. He followed me everywhere like a shadow and slept pressed against my leg like he could absorb my pain. I took long walks. I joined a book club under a fake name. I planted flowers, something I never thought I'd enjoy. I saw a therapist, a woman named Ruth, who didn't try to fix me but listened like I was worth hearing. Most of all, I reclaimed myself. I dyed my hair back to my natural color. I started running again, even if my lungs burned. I bought clothes that made me feel powerful. For the first time in years, I felt like I was living, not surviving. Until one day, I got a message request. It was a photo of me walking Toby by the lake, taken from a distance. No words. Just the image. Then another message, "I miss you. Please let's talk. Ben." I stared at the screen for a long time, heart pounding, not from longing, but from fury. How did he find me? And how dare he? He showed up 2 days later. I was pulling into my driveway, groceries in hand, when I saw him leaning against the gate. Thinner, disheveled, fake remorse painted across his face. "Alex," he said softly, like my name was a lifeline. I didn't answer. Just stared. "I've been looking for you," he said. "I heard what happened. About the lottery. About the cancer. Oh, now you care?" I snapped. His face flinched like I'd slapped him. "I messed up. I panicked. I didn't know how to handle what you were going through." "You didn't panic, Ben. You planned. You emptied my bank account and vanished. Don't insult my intelligence." He tried to step forward. I raised my hand. Toby growled. "I lost everything after I left," he said, eyes watering. "The money ran out. I made bad investments. I've been couch surfing. I realized, Alex, you were everything." I laughed. Loud and bitter. "You didn't come here because you realized you loved me. You came because I have money." "That's not true. You didn't even call when I was dying. I didn't think you'd survive." "Well, surprise," I said, stepping forward until I was nose to nose with him. "I did. And I did it without you. Now get the hell off my property. I'm your husband." He shouted. "Legally, I'm entitled." I froze. Oh no. Was he? Ben did exactly what I feared. He filed a lawsuit claiming half of the lottery winnings. His lawyer's argument was thin but clever: we were still legally married at the time of the win. Therefore, he claimed, the money was marital property, even though he'd abandoned me, stolen from me, and contributed nothing. But I was ready. I had receipts. Literally. My lawyer, a bulldog named Grace who looked like she ate men like Ben for breakfast, tore his case apart piece by piece. She subpoenaed bank statements, pulled phone records, and even found footage of Ben in a casino weeks after he drained our accounts, blowing our money on booze and roulette. We proved abandonment. We proved financial abuse. We proved he hadn't lifted a finger while I was undergoing chemotherapy. Then Grace brought in the big guns, my doctors. One by one, they testified how I'd fought for my life while alone, broke, and stressed beyond measure. She showed the court my medical bills, my food bank applications, the apartment lease in my name. Finally, I took the stand. "I didn't ask Ben for much," I said. "Just love. Loyalty. Presence. But when cancer came, he left. And now that money's here. He wants to return. That isn't love. That's opportunism." The judge didn't even hesitate. "Mr. Thompson," she said, "you are entitled to nothing. In fact, had Ms. Carter chosen to countersue for damages, I would have considered it. Case dismissed, with prejudice." Ben stood frozen, jaw slack, as the gavel came down. Destroyed. Publicly. Legally. And I felt no guilt. After the trial, Ben tried to contact me again. A pitiful email filled with apologies and sob stories. I never replied. I donated the cost of the court battle to the cancer ward where I'd been treated. I funded housing for 6 patients. I paid off the debts of a single mom who reminded me of who I once was. I changed my name permanently and sealed my records. I bought a new house in another state, secluded, serene, and safe. I wrote a memoir under a pen name. It became a quiet bestseller. The royalties go straight into the nonprofit. My voice, once silenced by pain, now echoes in the lives I touch. I am not just a survivor. I am a success. Ben? He disappeared again. Rumor has it he's working night shifts in a warehouse. Broke. Alone. No one wants a man who tried to sue his cancer-surviving ex-wife for money he didn't earn. Sometimes, I see my reflection and barely recognize her, this woman with clear eyes, strong shoulders, a calm soul. She doesn't cry in parking lots or beg for love. She walks with her head high, heart intact, past now buried. I don't need revenge. I have peace. I don't need him. I am richer without him.